What's going on, YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I have an awesome review of an awesome knife. This is the Bestech Malware. I've got a lot of things to say about that. That thing is super cool. I don't know if you guys watched me unbox it or play with it on Instagram, but I've been having a lot of fun with this thing. I'm not the first person to review it. I think there's some other reviews out there, but really, really cool. Before I get too far, I want to give a shout out to Mark Goldstein. Mark Goldstein became a Metal Knight in the Metal Army on my Patreon here recently. He wanted to say shout out to all the plumbers out there. So that's a great shout out. Awesome. I hope there's a lot of plumbers watching my channel. One of my best friends is a plumber, so that's really, really cool. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at this knife. By the way, before we get started, this knife was provided to me by the Pass Around Group, which means it came directly from the manufacturer, so I appreciate that opportunity. As usual, I will try not to let that sway my opinion one way or another. It usually doesn't, and I don't get to keep the knife, so there's no real incentive. This knife is actually a collaboration between Bestech and a company called Todd Knife and Tool. And actually, I thought it was an R. I believe that's a TKT, so that would make sense there. And that's a company that, and let me get this correct, I'm basically mimicking what Nick Shabazz said. That's a company that is owned and operated by someone that's actually in our part of the knife community, and that's Zelric. If you haven't checked out his channel, you should. I believe that's his brother, the way that I understand it, or basically the information that I got from Nick Shabazz's review of this knife. Really, really cool. Like I said, check out Zelric if you haven't. So let's go ahead and get some measurements on this guy real quick. Definitely on the larger side, coming in at, golly, almost 9 inches. Is it 8 3/4? A little bit over 8 3/4 is what it looks like. The actual blade length is coming in at, I guess you could call it 4 inches in places if you want to go to the point of that scale. Yeah, honestly, it's almost 4 inches. Cutting edge is coming in at about 3.75. So, you know, it's the profile of this knife that throws me off, because it's so long and slender that you don't realize exactly how big it is, you know? And that's that illusion is something that's always impressive to me when a design is so striking and has such an odd feel to it and look to it, that it throws off your sense of size completely. I would have guessed that's probably 8.5, 8 1/4, and I'd have been way off just looking at it. But anyways, let's go ahead and get some size comparisons in here real quick. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. You can see right there, the Rat 1, while it being it's definitely a fatter knife, is not quite as long. So, pretty cool. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. You know what I just realized? This knife looks like a super futuristic version of the PM2. It looks like Megatron tried to become a PM2 entirely based off of his memory. Like, they were like, no, we can't put one in front of you, but we need you to change into a Spyderco PM2. And he was like, oh, geez, I don't know. I'll try to remember. And he became the Malware. That's, oh my gosh, that maybe I'm the only one laughing at that. But God, doesn't it look like it looks like a super futuristic PM2? That's crazy. A lot of the lines are in some of the same places. Obviously, the blade is different. It's much more angular, but I don't know. Maybe you guys can see that there. Anyways, holy cow, mega tangent there. Up against the Spyderco Delica coming in at 7 inches overall. So, big knife. Let's take a look at the action here. Nice wiggle shut action and incredible deployment. This knife has that snap that you want from a frame lock flipper. It just feels good to deploy. That flipper tab is in the right place. It breaks the detent with authority, and it snaps into place. That's awesome. It's also a really aggressive looking knife, and the sound and feel go along with how it looks, and I like that. That's really cool. Let's go ahead and weigh it here real quick. Come on, this scale is just ridiculous. There we go. Overall weight, 3.67 ounces. That's awesome. Super lightweight for how big it is. 3.7 ounces. So it's under that 4 ounce mark, and it's like a 9-inch folding knife. That's awesome. Really, really cool. So Bestech knives, for those of you who are not familiar with them, I'm a huge fan of Bestech knives. It seems like everything that comes out of their factory, whether it's part of their premium line, which this knife is, or it's part of their budget line, which a lot of those have been shown on my channel as well. Like everything is just a home run. It's amazing. It's made super well. It's got an incredibly tuned detent. You know, fit and finish is to fulfill another cliche that I say, fit and finish is excellent, guys. But seriously, everything's put together in a way that displays care and attention, and it's just nice. I love Bestech. They're awesome. I really hope that makers, custom makers, collaborate with this company because they're amazing. I love them. Let's talk about materials here. We have a satin finished CPM S35 VN blade. This is satin finished. There actually is a black washed version of this, which I believe is the one that Nick Shabazz showed. We have 6 AL4V titanium scales on both sides, so this is full titanium. You do have some pretty serious milling on the inside there, which is how they achieve 3.7 ounces on. Honestly, it's pretty thick titanium. I mean, take a look at that there. You're looking at titanium that's pretty thick and a blade stock thickness that's probably about the same as the PM2, about 145 thousandths. So it's not like this thing is like super duper skinny, but they managed to make it appear that way in profile and feel that way in weight, which again is super cool. You do have a slot that works as sort of a two-finger pinch opener. It also works as a deployment mechanism for your thumb, as well as a very convenient and very satisfying reverse flick opening mechanism for your middle finger back here. So that's awesome. It is primarily a flipper, and like I've already gone over, it does that exceptionally well. Very satisfying. Very easy to disengage the lock bar, which has nice cutouts that are meant for your thumb. Really easy to get the meat of your thumb in there and disengage that. Because of the position of the flipper tab and the position or the size of that sharpening or that finger choil there, you can absolutely use your thumb to disengage and get it past the detent ball and just sort of shake it back into place. So that makes it very fun to fidget with. Really, really like that. That's awesome. I also like that groove that passes over the thumb hole there. That's really nice. Bestech does a good job of keeping their logo subtle. It's just like, hey, this is a Bestech knife. That's all the more we feel compelled to put on there. That's great. Thank you. Also, again, I say this every time. Bestech, thank you for not putting, this big like made in China somewhere on it. They just put Bestech, and I just noticed S35 VN on the blade, and that's it. They don't flash made in China anywhere on it. So that's cool. We know that. We're paying $200 for this knife. Actually, $196 is, I believe, what this costs. We'll go over that. We're paying that much for this knife. We're going to know where it came from. I really, really like the pivot, the Todd Knife and Tool pivot there. Looks really nice, very simple, and it's just something different. This is more of a decorative side of the pivot. We have the adjustment side on the other side. Moving down to the titanium, we do have some nice machine work that's been, pretty well rounded off all the way around. I wouldn't call it sharp, but I wouldn't call it rounded either. But I think the angular nature of that is honestly the overall design and appearance of this knife, so I think it's welcome there. You've got 3 little holes here that aren't, I don't necessarily like designs that have like big open holes on the body. I just don't like that. But those 3 are so tiny that it adds a nice little aesthetic feature that I think looks good, and it's beveled a little bit, so you get some reflectivity on the inside of that cup there, so that's really cool. You have a nice stone washed finish on the titanium, light grain structure, so that looks really nice. Got a couple of Torx head sizes back here that are a little bit bigger, I believe. Are they? No. Are they about the same size as the Spyderco? A little bit smaller. Maybe they are the little size. Are they the little tiny size? No, they're in between. It looks like. So a little bit bigger there. You've got a nice backspacer with a little bit of texturing on there. And just, the complexity here, the different cutouts on either side of the titanium and the cutouts on either side of the backspacer. And then you've got a little bit of the floating look on either side of it here and then back. I mean, that's awesome. That's a lot of like just excess machine work just to make the backspacer look cool. And I think it looks nice. I also really like this. It almost looks like a sword pocket clip, It's pretty straight. There's no real obvious place for you to get a grip on the pocket clip, and it's pretty skinny, so some people aren't going to like that. You could actually pinch it right here. There's a little bit of a cutout for your finger there. It's going to carry about right here, but because it's so thin or so narrow, it really doesn't seem like a lot of that sticking up out of your pocket. It is pretty easy to get in and out of your pocket, and one benefit to having a pocket clip that's this flat is there's not a lot of room for this to snag on something and bend or break off. You do have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop, and of course, as per usual with Bestech, we have perfect centering. Your lockup is coming in. It appears actually on camera to be coming in at like 50%, but I think it's actually about 35 or 40% because that lifts over so far. Ergonomically, I agree with Nick Shabazz. This does not look like a knife that's going to be kind to your hands. It looks like something that's going to be very angular, or that it might bite you as soon as you pick it up. But it's actually really comfortable to hold, whether it's back here or choked up in this position. It actually feels really natural. We didn't cover the blade shape here. This is a Wharncliffe looking blade, but again, as Nick Shabazz pointed out, there is actually some slight curvature as we move up here. That means that, not the entire blade is going to be in contact with the material as you're making push cuts like that. It kind of does have, a curvature to it so you can keep whatever part of the blade you're trying to cut, the belly, which I guess is up here in the material. Adds a little bit more of a slicey nature to an otherwise perfectly flat or razor style blade, and I like that. I think that is utilitarian. It's not fully flat ground, behind this point, but here it is ground all the way up to the spine, I guess. The main feature of the blade is that it is very pointy and very pokey. Now, as far as EDC goes, I don't know how utilitarian that is. To me, this is one of those knives that's made incredibly well. It's ergonomic, it looks nice, it kind of satisfies an itch in the knife community where we're so tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. What we want is something different, but we don't want something different in a bad way. There's a lot of different knives that are coming out where a lot of us are like, yeah, it's different, but I don't really like it. We've gotten so picky that, it's harder and harder and harder for companies to make designs that have all the, the fit and finish aspects that we expect. It's got the flipping action that we expect. It's got all that stuff made out of the materials we want, but is a different design that's pleasing. And this was achieved in this design, absolutely. Is it going to do, the EDC tasks that could reasonably be expected of it? Yeah, absolutely. Is it a little bit overkill in terms of size or blade shape? Yeah, but not in a bad way, not in like a hindering way. Like I said, the footprint on this guy is pretty small. Honestly, I think if anything, it's worth the money, not just in the quality of the build or how fun it is to play with, but it also just because it's fun to look at. It's cool. It's different. It looks like Spy versus Spy. I think I said that in the unboxing. I really like it. My only two nitpicks, honestly, are just how thin the pocket clip is, and it might be, honestly, pulling it in and out of my pocket here, it goes in and out okay, but it's just kind of a pointy pocket clip, and it's flat, and there's no obvious place to grab my finger on. But the pocket clip does go well with the overall design. There are a couple of spots that are a little bit pointy that could have been rounded off just a little bit more. It's not in excess. It's not something that I'm going to say, oh, it's a deal breaker. It's a minor nitpick, Obviously, there's going to be some areas where you just can't carry a blade this big. And truthfully, this blade is just a little bit big all the way around for what I think most people will use it for. But all of these little tiny nitpicks are honestly, there's a massive shadow cast over all of them. And that shadow is being created by, like I said, the cool factor. It's the cool factor in appearance, the cool factor in the design and the quality of the design. The fact that you can use the reverse flick on that slot, the forward thumb flick, and the flip, and it just feels good, and you can do that all day, and your thumbs aren't going to get sore because of the nice landing zone back here. It's a little tiny bit sharp right there, but for the most part, you're going to land right here. This is a knife that's fun to play with, and it's going to bring people joy who do decide to go ahead and spend the money on it. Do I think $196 is appropriate for a knife like this? Yeah, for full titanium and bearings with this build quality, that cool blade shape design and S35VN steel, yeah, $196. I have no problem with that. I think that's very fair. Really, really cool. Honestly, I think this is going to be a super popular knife. I think you're going to see a lot of people want to get their hands on this. It won't surprise me at all. I love that they decided to include the forward choil there. I am a huge fan of that. This entire time during this review, I have this odd feeling in the back of my mind that I'm leaving out something obvious. So if you've made it to this point in the video and you're like, why isn't he pointing this out? Go ahead and correct me. Maybe it's nothing. You know, I do get this feeling sometimes while I'm doing a review, and I hate leaving stuff out or getting things wrong. But fortunately, my viewers are really good about correcting me and being cool about it. So thank you for that. But honestly, that's all that I can think of at the moment. I really, really do recommend this knife. I think you guys should go check it out. And the fact that it's Zelric and his brother, I think, is even cooler. That's awesome. It like came directly out of this circle, this corner of this YouTube knife world, and I think that's awesome. This is an excellent and unique design. Definitely worth the money. So anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, or at least found it entertaining, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So please check that stuff out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. I just figured out what it was that I didn't point out. God bless you if you stayed all the way through my... This is like an Avengers movie where the people who stayed till the end, they get the bonus part. So here it is. Here's the part that I left out. The pocket clip position is set up currently for right-handed tip up carry. It looks like you cannot mount it for left-handed carry. However, they do make a left-handed version of this knife. Most of you guys probably know that by now. I'm probably not the first review that you've watched. But if I am, and you're wondering, do they make a left-handed version of this knife? Yeah, they do. They do make a left-handed version. I think it's sold out on Blade HQ at the time of this video, but maybe not in the future. But I know I should have said that right off the bat. That's useful information for the majority of people who only watch the first 4 minutes of review and then leave. But yeah, they do make a left-handed version. So lefties rejoice. That's great news. So anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and have a great day.